Okay. I'm sorry this mic is not louder. We're trying to make it as loud as we can. Well, good afternoon and welcome. As the co-executive director of Health Freedom Idaho, a board member of Health Freedom Defense Fund, and as the newest team member of the Idaho Freedom Foundation, it is my honor to host Capital Clarity today. Very excited to be here. So Thomas Jefferson is quoted as saying, "If people let the government decide what foods they eat and what medicines they take, their bodies will soon be in as sorry a state as are the souls of those who live under tyranny." My friends, today we are a population whose bodies are in a sorry state of widespread sickness, as well as facing government-imposed tyranny. Medical freedom is the most fundamental of all rights. If you do not have dominion and autonomy over your own body, you have no freedom at all. What good is free speech or the right to bear arms or the right to due process if you are a slave whose body is not your own? This week, with all that has happened with the veto and the subsequent chaos surrounding the Idaho Medical Freedom Act, it is as clear as ever that Idaho is a target for big business and big pharma because of our strong defense of health freedom. Idaho has the highest kindergarten vaccine exemption rates, nearly 12% last time I checked. That is far above the next closest state. I'm very proud of that, as I have worked to defend and strengthen Idaho's vaccine exemptions and educate the public on them since 2011, for 14 years. I believe that is why the governor's office insisted that daycares be excluded from our Medical Freedom Act. Idaho is proving that children are healthier without these poisonous products. We have created the control group that the pharmaceutical industry does not want to see exist. They are attempting to sicken children starting from day one to create a sick population which will become patients for life. They create the problem and then they have the solutions ready from which they profit massively. To expand on all of this, I would like to introduce our speakers, two individuals I have had the privilege to work with, have immense respect for, and am honored to call my friends. First up is Leslie Manookian, the president and founder of Health Freedom Defense Fund. She is a former successful Wall Street business executive and also an award-winning documentary filmmaker. In 2011, she released The Greater Good to rave reviews and awards, a documentary she wrote and produced, which explores the debate surrounding vaccines. This impactful film brings increased awareness of this issue and the importance of health freedom. After observing the trampling of our constitutionally protected inalienable rights for the past 2 decades and then seeing the tyranny of COVID unfold, protecting the medical and health freedoms of all Americans inspired Leslie to found Health Freedom Defense Fund. Leslie's and HFDF's mission rests on the foundational principle that bodily autonomy is the most sacred and precious of human rights and must be fervently guarded. Leslie and HFDF endeavor each and every day to instill that notion in the public consciousness and codify it in law. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and privilege to introduce my friend and colleague, Leslie Manookian.
You'll need this. I can't talk on this. Well, you need to do both. Do both. This is for the round for the live stream. Okay. Sorry for the tears, everyone. They're for 2 reasons. Because, well, maybe 3 reasons. I had hoped that I would be standing here today to just be celebrating an unmitigated success, something that each and every one of us should be proud of. And instead, for the last week, we have been embroiled, literally mired, in the most shocking, despicable, treacherous game, essentially, that I could have ever imagined being part of. But I'm crying because a hero just walked in the door, and that is Rob Beiswinger. He has been true blue on this issue, the Idaho Medical Freedom Act, from day one. He has never wavered. He has stood up for what is right, and he has fought for our children from the very beginning. Our children should not be for sale. They should not be a chit or something that can be traded. They're not horses. They are our most precious assets, possessions, our most treasured um, beings in this nation and in this state, and yet they have been literally put on the auction block in order to secure the freedom of adults. I can't think of anything more abhorrent. So I'm crying today because it's just been an emotional week, because I am so unbelievably grateful to know Rob Beiswinger, a freshman representative in the Idaho legislature. And also for Sarah's incredible introduction and friendship. Sarah and Misty Karlfeld and I have been working together, part of Health Freedom Idaho, for it's almost 10 years now. And they were some of the first to host a screening of The Greater Good many years ago. And anyway, it's just wonderful to be here. You know, usually I try to speak about maybe a little history or a bit of law. Today, I want to actually do two things. One is to help everybody understand what's happened, and then talk a little bit about what we all can do to try and fix this. So you all may know, I mean, as Sarah said, it's been my mission now for quite a while, since having made The Greater Good, to try and establish a societal norm that each and every one of us is responsible for ourselves, and that most importantly, that we are entitled to medical freedom, to the most precious of rights, which is the right to direct the care of our bodies. And it is imperative that each and every one of us are able to do so without coercion, completely unfettered by any concerns. There should be no handcuffs on us in any way. We shouldn't have to do something in order to earn a living, or to enter a grocery store, or access a public venue. We should not be forced to submit to anything. I don't care if it's an antibiotic, or it's a vaccination, or it's a drug, in order to work. I mean, if an employer can tell us, well, you know what, you need to actually take ADD meds because you'll be more productive, then we live in a really twisted society, and we're not far from that. Don't think that it's only about vaccinations. There's an effort to chip everyone. Some people claim that these mRNA shots may be doing something that provides an opportunity to control us in some ways. I don't know the truth about any of that. All I know is that what matters to me is that I am free to make my own medical choices, free of any kind of interference from anyone. My right to direct my life and my health is a God-given right that shall not be infringed by anyone. No employer, no school, no politician, no bureaucrat, I don't care who they are, it's my right, and it's yours too. When I hear people say, you know, well, as long as there's a risk, there must be a choice, or if it's proven safe, then it's okay to mandate it, I think to myself, safe for whom? Who decides what's safe for me? Is there anything that is safe for me? And even if it is proven safe, even if it's, I don't know, vitamin C, who owns me? Ultimately, this is a slippery slope, and it's not one I will ever go down again. My right to medical autonomy is absolute, period. This is the problem with what's happened in the last week. So I wrote this bill last year, as you guys all probably know. Misty and I spoke with Senator Dan Foreman. I told him what my idea was. He said, draft the bill. I'll take a look at it. If I like it, I'll sponsor it. I gave him the bill sometime in the fall last year. He said he loved the bill, and he said he'd be honored to run with it. He did all the legwork. He went to the Legislative Services Office and did everything that needed. He then introduced the bill, got a print hearing in January, and then asked me to come to Boise on February 5th and present the bill and stand for questions in the Senate State Affairs Committee, which I did. And we passed out of committee 7-2 with a request to make a couple of minor amendments to it, which I was happy to do, just clarifying that occupational hazards requirements, traditional standards for vocational and occupational hazards were excluded. So we did that. It sailed through the Senate, sailed through the House. I presented to the House Health and Welfare Committee with Rob Beiswanger sponsoring the bill. And on 2 Wednesdays ago, the bill passed the House, the full House. Rob did a phenomenal job debating the bill and defending it on the House floor, and then they voted 47-23 in favor of the bill. Then we waited. The bill was supposed to have gone, I thought, to the governor 2 Fridays ago, but it didn't go until Monday. And then what happened was we waited. You have 5 days. The governor has 5 days to make to veto or do whatever he wants to do. He can veto it, he can sign it, or he does nothing, and it becomes law after 5 days. And that was going to be last Saturday at 11:30 in the morning. Well, instead, the governor vetoed the bill an hour to an hour and a half before the bill was going to take effect automatically. And he called Senator Foreman, and he issued a statement. And in his statement, he said, I am concerned that there's this gray area that the bill doesn't address whether or not schools can exclude sick children. Well, it doesn't address that because the bill's not about that. The bill is about whether or not schools or anybody can force a medical intervention on any Idahoan. There is no reason to discuss quarantining or sending sick kids home because we're not touching that. It's already codified in law. It's already part of the Idaho Code. But he made this up. Literally, this was his excuse. And what's very interesting is that the Idaho Education Association and its contacts in the legislature were making these same claims in committee and on the floors during the debate. The question is why? Well, I figured out why. I think it was yesterday morning. Was it yesterday morning that I figured it out? Maybe it was 2 days ago. It's all a blur. They were saying this because they had a bait and switch in mind. On Monday morning, I was up all night long because I couldn't sleep because I was so trepidatious about what was going on. And I drafted a letter, fearful that something was going to happen, and I sent it to everybody in the Senate, documenting all that Governor Little had done. And the reason I did that is because think about our children. When we raise our children, do we teach them to be honorable? Do we teach them to be honest? Do we hold them accountable when they fail in those regards? We do. Why do we treat adults any different? We shouldn't, and the fact that we do is part of the problem that ails this country. And I don't really care anymore. Whatever they say about me, against me, it doesn't matter. I am going to call out liars for the liars that they are. And Governor Little lied. Governor Little told us that if we fixed this little piece of language and made sure that everyone understood that the bill did not in any way infringe upon existing code, that schools were authorized to send children home, sick children home, that he would be fine with it. But you know what happened when Dan Foreman went to go and meet with Little's folks on Monday? They said, well, actually, we're not going to sign the bill, but we'd be comfortable if you just carved out daycares. They want to put our children on the chopping block in exchange for our freedom. This is disgusting. It's diabolical. Why do they want to do that? Because the pharmaceutical industry bears no liability for those injections, because it's a profit stream that is basically free. They get mandates and then they're free of any kind of liability, because roughly 75-80% of all shots given to children before the age of 18 are given before age 6. That's what this is really about. And because I don't think that there are any public daycares in the state. Are there? Someone correct me if I'm wrong. They're all private. So if you carve out daycares, public and private, meaning that they're all private, How are tens of thousands of parents going to secure childcare for their children if they want to work, if they need to earn a living? They won't be able to if that's removed. And there's only one reason that they would put that. Literally, they defined it 6 different ways and inserted that into the bill. And I said, Dan, why are they doing this? They're doing it for a reason. No, I trust them. And I'm like, no, this is evil. Yeah. So what happened was I was actually texting with Brian Festa of We the Patriots USA and a dear friend. And he reminded me, actually, I didn't know the date. The Idaho Supreme Court is going to hear Tipton versus New Horizons Daycare on February 5th. May 5th, sorry, thank you. May 5th. So think, if they put this into code right now that daycares are exempted, the court is going to look, and this whole lawsuit is about whether or not daycares have to honor the Idaho Code, which says that children can be exempted from vaccinations for any reason of the parents' choosing. If that's excluded now, the latest intention of the legislature would be that daycares are excluded from the Medical Freedom Act, and therefore all vaccine exemptions. Those kids would be on the chopping block. And you know what? Senator Foreman kept telling me, it's a good bill. It's still a good bill. I'm like, no, it's not a good bill, and I will not attach my name to something that sacrifices children for your freedom, Dan. So that's all the bad news. Let me tell you what's happened in the last 48 hours, because it's pretty incredibly exciting. And if we are not being protected and actually exercising our muscles in an incredible way, I don't know what's happening. So I literally begged Senator Foreman to call me and speak with me, assuming that he just didn't understand what was happening, that he was sacrificing something that he shouldn't because he didn't get it, but he ignored me. He totally ignored me. He ignored all my pleas, all of my texts, everything. He only called me on Monday night and said that he had been too busy to talk to me, after assuring me that he would not change the language in the bill without consulting with me first, that he would not proceed without consulting with me first. But then he went to the Senate and he actually introduced his new bill containing this carve-out for daycare. That's what he did. Then he called me on Monday night and said that he was too busy to talk to me. And when we got into a discussion about it, I said, you don't understand what you're doing. I still hadn't connected the dots about New Horizons Daycare, the largest daycare operator in the state, the largest daycare operator in the country. The defendants in the lawsuit that's going before the Idaho Supreme Court in May. There's a connection here. All of these legislators who were saying that their concern was about kids being sent home, that's not what this is about. It was about justifying auctioning our children off. That's what this is about. But what's happened since is that we, and I mean we really truly, all sorts of organizations from Idaho Freedom Foundation to Heritage Foundation to the Weston A. Price Foundation to Health Freedom Defense Fund and Health Freedom Idaho, and I'm sorry if I'm forgetting some, we have mobilized thousands of people. And you know what? We're winning. They were forced to take the daycare provision out of that bill. More importantly, and my favorite part, is that the House is running their own bill, which is exactly my bill with the clarification, yes, that the children can be sent home if they're sick, that schools can turn them away. And this is thanks to Representative Beiswanger, Speaker of the House Moyle, who else? Josh Tanner. Those are the main people. These guys have put their name on the bill, and they are running with a good, clean bill that is exactly what the governor asked for. And if he doesn't sign it, then every single Idahoan knows that he was always a treacherous traitor from the very beginning, and that he was always planning on doing this, and that he is not a man of his word. That's what we will all know, and we will all have to fight to get rid of him in the next election cycle, and all of the others. Now, the House bill is fantastic, and it's already been, Rob presented it in committee this morning. It passed, it sailed through. I believe it's going to be on the floor of the House at some point today. I'm getting a thumbs up on that. That's fantastic. It's House Bill 472. Please support it. Senate Bill 1210, which is the bill from that basically the governor hijacked. That bill, they've said that they're taking out the child care exemption or the daycare exemption, but we don't know. And given what they've already shown they're capable of doing, I am extremely concerned that there will be more shenanigans, and we therefore cannot support it. So I spoke against it in committee today before my husband and I jumped in the car and raced here from Ketchum. So please, oppose 1210, support 472. I want to close with this. As I mentioned, we expect our children to be good and honorable, and we hold them accountable when they are not. It is imperative that each and every one of us live like that in our lives as well. It's also imperative that we not shirk from calling out those who are not. In particular, those who are pretending to represent us. We can't be too busy in our lives. We can't. We can't think, I just can't be bothered. We have got to stand up if we want to right this ship. But the last 48 hours have proven to me that we can right this ship, that our army is strong, and that we have the power to overcome what they are trying to push on us. They have backed down. Apparently, the governor is saying that he will sign a bill now with the daycare exclusion. And there is only one reason for that, and that is because Idahoans have spoken, made our voices heard, let them know that we are watching and that we will not be bought or sold or backed down. I've cried so much in the last few days. It's been incredible, truly incredible. Unbelievable shock at the betrayals. Unbelievable shock at how low these people can go, that someone can actually consider it desirable to literally put our children up for sale. But you know what? I am more encouraged today than I've ever been because I cannot believe the outpouring of support, not only in Idaho, but across the nation for this, and that we have been able to stop something that's really dangerous. If we can do this now, our voices will only get stronger. We just need to keep staying engaged, keep uniting and standing up, and we are going to get rid of these people who are not representing us. Their names are now known. They have exposed themselves for who they truly are. It's now up to every one of us. If you are able, please run for office. Please primary these people. Please go and sign up or run for your school boards. Do something. This is how we affect change. We are within 1 or 2 votes of controlling both chambers of the Idaho legislature with true liberty people. We need just a few more. Please throw your ring in the hat. Do your civic duty if you possibly can, and help us keep Idaho the freest and most honorable state in this nation. Thank you. Oh, here you go.
Thank you, Leslie. Okay, next up, Dr. Ryan Cole received his medical degree from the Medical College of Virginia at Virginia Commonwealth University. He then spent 5 years in training at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. He is a board-certified anatomic and clinical pathologist with subspecialty training and 20 years experience in dermopathology and particular interest in molecular diagnostics. In 2004, he founded Cole Diagnostics, an independent full-service medical laboratory in Boise. Dr. Cole is licensed in states from coast to coast and serves patients and clinicians from across the country. Please join me in welcoming our hometown hero, Dr. Ryan Cole.
Thank you very much. this on, so does this go any higher by chance? No? All right. I'll speak up. Friends, citizens, countrymen, lend me your ears. No, just kidding. Just kidding. What Leslie said, it's an honor to be here with my fellow Idahoans, and especially the brave representatives and senators who've done the right thing. And as Leslie mentioned, we have a governor who so far has not, as you know. And, what's fascinating to me is this is Idaho. I mean, one of the reddest states in the nation. And Governor DeSantis was here last week speaking with our House and Senate members. We have the opportunity in Idaho to make what DeSantis has done in Florida look like the JV team. Why don't we? Why don't we? Why do we put up with what has been going on? It's surprising. I'll leave it at that. We have champions of liberty in this room, but we have them all over the country as well. Leslie is absolutely, top-notch point guard, three-point shooter, going to win the game, put it in her hands. Same with Sarah, same with We the Patriots, same with so many groups, Children's Health Defense, so many groups that are standing up for the next generation. My journey started at this podium. I was just a quiet guy, just living a quiet life with my wife and 6 daughters, enjoying my little farm here in Idaho, organic. And I had a great business, had 80 employees, saw what happened the last 5 years, obviously spoke against the disaster that it was, saw the freedoms taken away from so many of our fellow citizens, the jobs, the lockdowns, the tyranny. And I spoke against it because it wasn't based in science. It was based in trademark the science. The guy of whom I speak, who is thankfully no longer in that position. But we have a lot of things we still need to do. And I think the game we've watched being played the last week is very indicative of, if you want things to stay the same, sit on your hands and do nothing. But as Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. Nobody is coming to save you. Nobody. We all can do our part, but it starts at home with individual personal responsibility. And that's the beauty of Idaho, is we have that independent, pioneer, cowboy spirit here of what needs to happen, not statewide, not region-wide, not county-wide, but starting in your own bedroom when you wake up and make your bed in the morning. How are you going to make the world a better place when you wake up? What personal responsibility are you going to take to be involved to make your community better, your family better, your neighborhood better? That's where it starts. It's wonderful to, find inspiring speakers and to find, like-minded thinkers. But I think it's important, too, that we find those that don't think like us. I think it's so important that we engage in dialogue and conversation. It's so important that we understand the world in which we live. And part of that is having the uncomfortable conversations. Now, today I want to address something fundamental, and this is why we're here, and that is health freedom. It's not just a political issue. It's a moral issue. It is absolutely a moral imperative and a cornerstone of liberty and a reflection of the values enshrined in both the Idaho Constitution and the United States Constitution. Now, our founding fathers envisioned a nation where liberty and autonomy were sacred. We don't bow to a king that tells us what to do anymore, because bold people pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor so we could agree to disagree, so we could have conversations, so we could engage in the uncomfortable to make life better for the next generations and not have to kiss the ring or bow the knee. As John Adams says, liberty must at all hazards be supported. We have a right to it derived from our Maker. This principle is echoed in the Idaho Constitution, which affirms that all political power is inherent in the people, and the government exists to protect what the governor wants to do and what business wants? No. Protect the rights of the individual. And certainly among these rights is the ability to make personal choices about our own bodies, about our health, a right that cannot be infringed without undermining the very fabric of freedom. Benjamin Rush, he was one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, and he warned us long ago, unless we put medical freedom into the Constitution, the time will come when medicine will organize itself into an undercover dictatorship. Wasn't that prescient and prophetic? And where do we find ourselves now? So health freedom isn't merely about medicine. You know, some people think it's, oh, I don't want that pill, I don't want that shot, I don't want that mask, I don't want that. Health freedom is about resisting tyranny in all its forms. And as Thomas Jefferson so eloquently declared in the Declaration of Independence, we the people, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, these powerful words remind us that freedoms are not granted by the government, but are inherent to our humanity. This powerful declaration aligns perfectly with our state's commitment to individual liberty. Now, bodily autonomy is perhaps the most fundamental natural right that we do have. Without control over what goes into or on our own bodies, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness becomes impossible. Impossible. Now, the right to make our own medical decisions stands among these essential liberties. Benjamin Franklin warned us that they that give up essential liberty to obtain safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Now, this is a problem we have. We have this mindset of comfort and safetyism. Oh, that playground equipment is too dangerous. I mean, I remember being a kid, my parents didn't know where I was till the sunset. I was out catching toads and tadpoles and frogs and out in the woods. I grew up in Virginia, just outside the swamp in D.C. Both my parents worked for the government. But I got to be a child, and I got to live life. And they weren't afraid, Johnny breaks an arm, Johnny breaks a leg. That's part of growing up. Little Sue scrapes her knee, skateboarding or riding her bike or whatever. Life is suffering, and we grow from suffering. We grow from those experiences we have, but if we're kept in a little box with a little screen in front of us and 30 seconds of attention span, we're not going to grow as individuals. We must not sacrifice our freedoms in the name of security. This undermines the principal foundations of this great republic. So what is health freedom? Basic principles. Here's three basic core principles. Number one, self-determination. Self-determination, the right to decide how to care for our own bodies. Because you are an individual protected by a constitutional right to do so, as long as it harms no one else. Number two, access. The ability to choose your treatments, your therapies, your medical professional without government interference. Three, responsibility. That's a key core principle of health freedom. Responsibility. The duty to respect others' choices while safeguarding your own. Now, these principles align with both the 9th and the 10th Amendments in the United States Constitution, which reserve unenumerated rights to the people and limit federal overreach. They also resonate with Joseph Warren. Who knows the story of Joseph Warren? Okay, I'll tell that in a second here. He said, personal freedom is the natural right of every man. Alexander Hamilton powerfully stated, freedom is not a gift bestowed upon us by other men, but a right that belongs to us by the laws of God and nature. And this profound truth applies directly to our health choices. They belong to us by natural right, not by government permission. All right, Joseph Warren, kind of one of my heroes, and he's kind of one of the unsung heroes of the revolution. Get that out of my pocket, all the crinkling. Dr. Joseph Warren was one of the revolutionary founding fathers, hanging out with the likes of Samuel Adams and that ragtag rebellious group of patriots who were tired of King George and wanted self-determination and autonomy. And he exemplified courage in battle, medicine, politics, and as a physician during the smallpox epidemic in 1763, he administered care to the poor, to the wealthy. Didn't matter their station in life. He was a caring citizen that cared for his fellow citizens. And he demonstrated that medical service could embrace public health while respecting individual choice. Now, Warren's political activism began with his writings, culminated in his ultimate sacrifice when he was assassinated by the British General Gage on Bunker Hill. But he moved seamlessly between treating patients, defending liberty, understanding health, freedom, and political freedom, and that they are inseparable. Our Constitution established a limited government specifically to protect our natural rights. As I mentioned, the 9th Amendment reserves the unenumerated rights retained by you. You. That 9th Amendment is for you. Now, the Idaho Constitution likewise emphasizes individual rights and limited government. Our state constitution declares that all men are by nature free and equal and have certain inalienable rights, among which are enjoying and defending life and liberty, acquiring, possessing, and protecting property. You could lose everything. I could lose everything I own and live in a tent. I could lose my tent. What property do I have left? One thing, me, my personal self, my body. Does our Constitution not say possessing and protecting property, ourself, and pursuing happiness and securing safety? But that's up to the individual. The foundational documents create a clear mandate. Government should protect our health freedom, not restrict it. So unfortunately, some of our current leadership in Idaho has repeatedly failed to fully protect our health freedom. Governor Brad Little has vetoed crucial legislation designed to safeguard Idahoans and to restrict our medical autonomy. As Leslie mentioned just a few days ago, he vetoed what was a fantastic bill. And he didn't tell the truth. Now, I don't think he's illiterate. But it begs the question, why would anyone be the governor if they don't read the whole bill and then come up with a lie to the people as to why he's vetoing the bill? I mean, if the people of Idaho can be gaslit that easy, we have a lot of educating to do. I've tried to meet with him several times over the last 5 years. He wants yes men in his ear. I am not a yes man. Now, he claims to support medical freedom, and we will see in a few short hours or days whether that's true. His actions do tell a different story. In 2022, he also vetoed a bill that would have prohibited Idaho businesses from mandating COVID shots. Now, these decisions obviously demonstrate a very troubling pattern, compromising essential liberties when they matter most. When they matter most. When they matter most, he failed the citizens he's supposed to protect. Is it about money? Is it about corporate interest? I don't know. Make your own mind up on that. But what I do know is we need someone in that position that will protect the individual down to the right of autonomy over your personal medical decisions. I was happy that Raul Labrador, our great Attorney General, he said, hey, look, this is the defining bill of this session, and probably the most important bill in this entire nation. Thanks to Leslie and her great team. And here we are in a quagmire. And it's so critically important. We can set the example for a nation. Like I said, not just making the wonderful efforts of DeSantis look like a JV team, but it would make everybody else look like the freshmen or the peewee teams. I envision an Idaho where health freedom is not just a slogan, but a lived reality for all of us. For every citizen, be you 1 day old or 101 years old. No child should ever sacrifice, what we heard for years, oh, it's our job to protect grandma. No, it's grandma's job to protect the infant. I envision where parents can make medical decisions for their children without government interference, where healthcare professionals can practice according to their conscience. Look, the governor just signed the Medical Ethics Defense Act. And no healthcare professional, healthcare institution, or healthcare payer should be required to participate in or pay for any medical procedure, treatment, or service, or prescribe or pay for any medication to which he objects on the basis of conscience. Okay, great. That's a step in the right direction, right? Sure. But let me understand this correctly. He values the conscience and the decisions of healthcare professionals, but not the conscience and the decisions of the individual citizen. That seems a bit schizophrenic to me. And vetoing the wonderful bill that we did get passed, how is this historically any different than tyrannical public health actions of despots of decades past? Is it any different, really? I want to be able to say to you, is what the governor is saying, what you can and can't do with your own body. That's essentially what he's saying. This is a simple constitutional principle bill. You are you get to protect you, you get to do you. There. And the government will leave you alone. Simple as that. And we couldn't do it. We may, we'll see. So while Governor Little may point to certain laws that he signed, his veto of the Medical Freedom Act reveals his true priorities. When faced with comprehensive protection for health freedom, he chose control over liberty, institutions over individuals, and fear over freedom. George Washington once said, "Liberty, when it takes root, is a plant of rapid growth." We have planted the seeds of that tree of liberty here in Idaho. I think many people forgot what liberty was for a couple of years. But we're watching that plant and that tree grow very quickly. But you know what? I'm looking at the cultivators. We all need to cultivate it. And like Leslie said, get involved. Get on your school board. Run for office. Get involved in the process in whatever way, shape, or form you can. Because we are the cultivators of that tree of liberty. Our fight for health freedom echoes the broader struggle for independence that defined the birth of this nation. We must draw inspiration from our leaders past. Lincoln said, "Those who deny freedom to others deserve it not for themselves." So what's the call to action here? Idaho is a state built on resilience. Our communities embody the spirit of freedom. That's who we are as Idahoans. It's what's defined America since its founding. We've watched it become weak, but we won't tolerate that anymore. Those days are done. Idaho stands at a crossroads. Will we continue down a path where government dictates our choices, or will we reclaim our heritage as a state that values independence and autonomy? I believe in you. We're the people of Idaho. We can make the right choices. And we continue to fight with great leaders like Leslie and so many others in this room. With freedom comes responsibility, the responsibility to act morally, ethically, kindly, treating each other with dignity and respect, most certainly. We must act in a way that protects a free society. A free government depends on a citizenry that acts with integrity and virtue. Liberty, state, and national success starts with the responsible actions of the individual in defense and care of the community and its neighbors. Together, we can build an Idaho where the citizens have the freedom to make their own choices, an Idaho where liberty thrives again. Now, as one of my heroes said, with whom I share a birthday, even though we were born a couple centuries apart, Patrick Henry, famously declared, and I stood in the pulpit in Richmond, Virginia when I was in medical school, where he gave this talk, and dressed up in the robes, and it was pretty cool. But what did he say? Give me liberty or give me death. This is about our children. This is worth fighting for. Idaho is worth fighting for. Freedom is worth fighting for. Bodily autonomy is the core principle worth fighting for. The Idaho Freedom Foundation has called the legislature to stand up against medical tyranny and do what's right for the people. I echo that call and that pledge. John Adams recognized the cost of freedom when he said, "I am well aware of the toil and blood and treasure it will cost us to maintain this declaration and support and defend these states. Yet through all the gloom, I see rays of ravishing light and glory. I can see that the end is worth all the means. The fight for health freedom may be challenging, but the prize, true liberty, is worth every effort." My fellow Idahoans, the time has come to reclaim our health freedom, to stand firm against mandates, against coercion, to embrace the wisdom of our founding fathers, the principle of our constitutions, both state and federal. I envision a better path forward where our state truly becomes a beacon of health freedom. Like I said, the most important bill in the entire nation. We can create an Idaho where you have the right to make your own medical decisions, protected by law, where medical choices remain between you and your healthcare provider, not dictated by governments, governors, or corporations. Parents have the final say for their children's healthcare. Diverse healing approaches are respected and accessible. Informed consent is paramount. The vetoes we've seen over the past few years have slowed progress on health freedom, but together we're turning it around. And if we don't turn it around, I think some important things are going to happen. Now, while I understand the challenges that many of you, our leaders, face and our governors face, I believe that we can find this better way forward. It starts with conversation. A governor that communicates daily with all the legislators. I don't care what stripe you are, red, blue, purple, doesn't matter. Communication is key to leadership. Where are the weekly podcasts from our governor and forums with our citizens? We don't need another Biden hiding in the basement. Idahoans need leaders who value freedom above all else. I will continue to be a voice and a leader in the rights and the ways that I can. And by every means possible, defend you, my friends, my neighbors, my community, my great Idaho neighbors. I will continue to be a voice for medical freedom, but not just that. I will demand accountability of our leaders, those who have failed us. I want to help chart a new course, one rooted in freedom, responsibility, and respect for individual rights. We can make Idaho become that beacon of liberty. A nation is hungry for this. A nation is hungry for this. We see it. We're part of it. Let's blaze the way. Let's set that example. Let's build that future. It's our birthright. I'm a champion of medical freedom, certainly, but not just medical freedom. I proudly wore the uniform many years ago. I'm a proud defender of freedom. Took an oath to the Constitution to defend it against all enemies, foreign, amen, and domestic. You knew it was coming. Because it matters. Because it matters. I've traveled the world these last several years. I've spoken in the EU Parliament. I've spoken in the UK Parliament, Italy Senate, Croatian Parliament, Romanian Parliament. The world's in trouble, folks. The world's in a lot of trouble. And if we don't set the example here in the United States, well, we fall with the rest of them. But if we don't set the example here at home in Idaho, it gets even worse. It starts here. It starts with us. That's where freedom starts. Individual involvement, personal responsibility, but leaders who care about your rights. And several of them are here right now. It does not take a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority, keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of men. Samuel Adams. Let us be that tireless minority, igniting the flame of health freedom across Idaho. I'll shut up now. I've taken too much time. Let me conclude with this. In the words of Thomas Jefferson, the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. Let us remain vigilant in protecting our rights for ourselves, for our children, and generations yet unborn. The time for passive acceptance is over. Let us never surrender our essential health freedoms, for in doing so, we would forfeit both health and liberty. Thank you. God bless you. God bless Idaho. Yeah, all yours. Oh, that one. Oh, you bet.
Okay, we are going to be able to do a Q&A with these two fantastic speakers. So please raise your hand if you have a question. Actually, Jake, do we need to have them come up?
Yeah.
Okay.
If everyone can line up in the middle, if you have questions, that'd be great.
Okay, great. Whichever one of you is speaking, can you speak into that and this?
Both.
Okay, thank you.
What about an acting governor that goes up to a secret meeting up in Sun Valley every July, just like Reagan, Nixon, and Bush went to Bohemian Grove, and then we have all these corporate heads and celebrities up there telling him, I think, what to do. So what do we do about that?
the key there is the word secret meeting. What the heck? Why? If you represent the people, be transparent. Radical transparency. Of course, there needs to be discussions and, how to strategize for legislation. I get that. That's fine. But secret meeting? No, that should not happen. And if you do go to a meeting like that, be transparent with people. Say, we had a meeting, this is why we had the meeting, and this is what we discussed. Radical transparency, truth in government.
Thank you for the question. I think it's a really good one, but I think that the real issue is that we tolerate it. That's why it happens. Now, do you guys remember when Senator Rich was going to attend the World Economic Forum? What happened? There was an outcry, a public outcry, and what did he do? He canceled. I tried to get people to push Brad Little. I did. I called for him to not go, but barely anybody joined me. This is what I'm talking about. The only way we are going to affect change is if people engage. And that means you've got to pay attention to everything that's happening, the most important things that are happening, in the government, and not enough of us are. And so that's why we're in this kind of grim shape, essentially. So to me, if we had all pushed back, he might have had to cancel. Even if he's not the honorable man that we all wish he was, at least he'd be forced to cancel because he couldn't do it from a public image perspective. And I think that's the only thing that's going to happen. We're going to shame. The only reason we've won this week so far, and we haven't won yet, but is because we've shamed them. I mean, I called him a liar. And I mean it because he lied. This is the point. We have to stand up and speak truth to power, or else it will steamroll us.
Nice to see you again, Dr. Cole. I recently had a choice to take blood. I was in emergency, and I had called the American Red Cross before and asked them about how do they categorize blood that comes from, if I get blood, is it going to come from someone that's had the shot? Okay. What happens to a person if they get blood like that?
So for those of you who didn't hear the question was about receiving blood donation, and whatnot. If we hail back to the 1980s, we had a problem. We had a virus in the blood supply. And what did the Red Cross do? They finally started screening. Now, the COVID shots have a tendency to cause clotting, and many people know that. This goes back to radical transparency. And, the Red Cross is a private organization. They receive a lot of money. But this goes back to anything in life. It's radical transparency. They should be testing the blood supply and say, techniques are being developed academically to test the safety of the supply. Is there spike protein circulating? Look, the Yale study came out a couple weeks ago. Some people still have circulating protein, spike protein in their blood over 700 days after their last shot. That shouldn't happen biologically. That's because it was contaminated with DNA. These people have a persistent portion of DNA making a foreign toxic protein. The Red Cross should be screening all blood. I've called for it. Many others have called for it. In that life or death situation, and you need blood, you need blood. And we don't have another option right now. And that's the unfortunate aspect. But if we had truth and transparency, then people could make a choice. And we don't have that truth, and we don't have that transparency, because there's too much corporate money involved, and it's to the detriment of the individual citizen's health and right to know and have fully informed consent. And that has to change as well. And I think a pressure campaign against the Red Cross to say, hey, be transparent. Is there a toxic protein circulating in a portion of your blood supply or not? I think that should be required.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just say also, if that's happened to you and you're in that situation, it's imperative that you eat the healthiest diet you possibly can. You can take desiccated liver, which is dried out grass-fed liver. It's the most high vitamin A food on the planet. It supports your liver. It supports your immune system. You can take high vitamin butter oil and other things. It's really essential that you eat really, really good quality fats from pastured animals, and support yourself as much as you possibly can. So it's not a death sentence. It's not irretrievable, but we have to do the things, take responsibility for ourselves and our lives, and keep ourselves well through these other means, because sometimes we have to take blood and things like this. And we have to change the law. You got to change the law, because right now 80% of donations in Idaho go out of state for a profit. And it is not legal for you as a family member to donate to someone who is in need of blood. They have no requirement to allow you to do that. We have tried to change it. It has not happened yet. It is something that needs to be addressed.
Okay, I have a question for each of you. For Leslie, I didn't hear about these efforts to pressure Rish and so forth. I'm on the HFDF mailing list, the Health Freedom Idaho mailing list, and I occasionally get mailings from both, but I didn't hear about it, so I couldn't participate. So how can we improve that communication system?
So the question is, the good gentleman wanted to help when I called for people to protest Brad Little or ask him not to attend the Allen and Company event that happens in my hometown every year. And listen, I think that the sad thing is that we try not to overwhelm people with our newsletter. We send it out once every 2 weeks, Health Freedom Defense Fund. And this is Health Freedom Idaho is volunteer. So we need a little bit more support from the community in order to have staff who can actually do this all the time. Because Sarah and Misty, they volunteer all their time and have for years. I've donated the last 25 years of my life to fighting for health freedom and protecting ourselves and our children. I don't take a salary for anything I do. I've donated over, 20, 30, 40,000 hours. And so I would just encourage you to support these organizations, because the more support we have, the more that we can do. And then I know that's harder for a crowd like this, but because we're probably not as engaged on social media, but that's oftentimes, in the last week, I've posted more on X than I've ever posted in my life, because everything was changing every 5 minutes. And so that's how you get the latest information, unfortunately, is on social media. It's very hard. And I think the other thing is really trusted news sources, Idaho Freedom Foundation, things like this, where they're actually focused on telling you what's going on in the news. That can help too. So to make sure that you're on those kinds of mailing lists. And anyone else that you think is really trustworthy, sign up for their list, and that's how you'll find out the most. If it's being covered in the mainstream media, it's because somebody wants you to see it and not notice what's not being covered. So tune those guys out for the most part and seek out the small independents. That's where you're going to get the good information.
On that point, as far as Health Freedom Idaho, I just wanted to tell you, we're constantly under attack. Our website used to be healthfreedomidaho.org, and it was the #1 health freedom website in the country, because we had such fantastic content and so many articles and so much good information, and our traffic was massive. We were constantly under attack by hackers, and eventually they succeeded. So we're now healthfreedomidaho.com, but we continue to have attacks, constant attacks, constant. So we are right now looking for people that can help us in the technology realm. That's just been the entire time Health Freedom Idaho has existed. That has been one of our biggest challenges.
And they literally delete our email list. I can't get our own emails from Health Freedom Idaho. I sign up and it blocks it. We are constantly under attack from every quarter that you can possibly imagine. It's an unsad fact. So it's hard, but you guys have to seek us out sometimes and just check in once a week or something with what we're doing.
Dr. Cole, so you're primarying Governor Little. How do we support you?
The answer is Governor Little needs to be primaried. I have a spirit to want to do it. We're going to wait and make sure there are ducks in a row and the possibility to do it. But whether it's me or somebody else, he needs to be primaried for sure. And again, to not stand up for the individual citizen. Look, he's probably a nice guy. I'd love to have dinner with my wife, and I would sit down gladly and have dinner with him and his wife. I'm sure he's a nice person. Will we see eye to eye on everything? Probably not. But at the same time, that's the thing we need to do. We need to engage in conversation with people we don't agree with. That's how we learn, and that's how we improve society. And so will I primary him? Not 100% sure at this point, to be quite honest. Big family decision, big life decision. But he does need to be primaried, in my opinion. I think Idaho is ready for a varsity team, not a JV team, and not a freshman team.
Dr. Cole, I'm asking this question for a lady right there, and it's the same kind of question. I left the Republican Party when Ron Paul was torpedoed and went to the Constitutional Party, but you're a libertarian, so she wants to know if you're willing to join the Republican Party so that you can run.
I think that's a great question. Does party really matter, or does principle matter? I think principle matters. I don't care what label you want to label yourself with in life. I care the integrity of you as an individual. To run, yeah, I would have to register as a Republican and run as a Republican, sure. Will I do that? Are most of my principles more conservative than most Republicans? About half the Republicans in the House right now? Yeah, they are. Present company excluded. You guys are fantastic that are here. But principle matters over labels. And I think that's the most important aspect of any part of politics. It's like, have I voted for Democrats in the past? Sure. Have I voted for independents? Sure. Have I voted for Republicans? Sure. Have I voted for third, fourth, fifth parties? Sure. Because I look at what those people stand for as an individual, and I look at the actual issues, and I don't look at the label. And I think, this is an unfortunate aspect of much of politics, is what's your label, what's your label? And once you have that tattooed on your hind end, okay, got the label, now you're good. That's not what matters the most. What matters the most is, are you a principled, ethical individual that has the integrity to stand up for constitutional principles and the rights of every citizen that you will represent? That's what matters. Thank you.
So Alexander Solzhenitsyn told us in his departing speech from the Soviet Union to live not by lies. And he listed an example of things that as citizens you should do, and one of them is, if you're in a public forum and you hear a lie, stand up and say something. So it's kind of what I'm doing. You're a good patriot, you know your history, but you quoted Alexander Hamilton and Abraham Lincoln, two of the worst people who destroyed our country. We have the illusion here that there's a political solution. There's no political solution. This is a strategy guaranteed to fail. So as generals, as citizen generals, we are losing before we even get into the battle. The battle is economic. We are controlled through economics. We are controlled through the central banking system, period. They took the money in 1913 and took control of everything in society. They control the Pentagon, they control the politicians, they control the news media, they control everything. Trump ran as a peace president, and in 90 days he's already bombed whoever, whatever. He's setting up, getting nuclear bomb, airplanes next to Iran, because he's controlled like everybody else. So it's it's the Federal Reserve, it's the central banking system. Everybody here, if you don't know the history of the Federal Reserve, you're getting a D- as a citizen of the American, Seriously, it's not a joke. That's very true. So we have to go back to gold and silver, a free economic system where the money and the power is in our hands, not the elite. That's That's it. That's the whole story. So he mentioned Ron Paul. Ron Paul wrote a great short little book, And the Fed. Everybody here should get that. Everybody should know The Creature from Jekyll Island. YouTube it and watch it. Okay.
Oh, thank you for that, and I think that's a great point. I mean, we were hijacked in 1913, and the money changers do run most of what's happening. So I don't disagree. And going back to a gold standard, there's a movement. I think it's already passed. I'm trying to remember whether it's Texas or Florida, where you can trade in with technology now. You can trade in fractional gold, fractional silver, and I think it's a great idea. And at least we as a state are reasonably fiscally responsible. If there's a surplus, it should go back to the people. But at the same time, this non-gold-backed system that we're living under is not a great idea. And the wars are fought over money, and the money changers, unfortunately, do rule the world. But that's a big picture. I get that. But let's start at home. Let's start here in Idaho. Let's start with the freedom principles here in Idaho and maintain those freedoms and be an example for the world. Let's support an Idaho-backed, gold note. That's something we can do by law, and we can do. I'm not going to get long into that. I've studied a lot of it. Creature from Jekyll Island, very aware. But yes, let's number one, maintain our fiscal responsibility as a state. And number two, always be informed and be aware of everything. Be a gourmand, just not a gourmet. Variety. Take in a lot of information. The greatest death in the last 5 years has been curiosity. And so stay curious, study everything. Don't believe everything you hear, but at the same time, have an open enough mind that you're filled with information so you can make good decisions.
I just want to add to that our forefathers gifted us literally the greatest gift I think that any nation has, and that is 50 states. We would have been Australia or the UK or Canada had we not had 50 states. And we do a lot of work on the national level, suing and holding the federal government accountable, forcing them to, suing them over their federal mask mandate, and taking that down to restore our freedom, things like this. But it's always been my intent to work at home because we have this gift of Idaho. It is not too big for us to have an influence. And the people who are moving here, 4-to-1, are coming here for our freedom. So our ranks are growing. We have an opportunity to really, truly affect profound change. And I totally acknowledge what you're saying, sir. I agree with you. But we have an opportunity here, and I don't think that it behooves any of us to engage in defeatism at this point. I think we're on the precipice of real change and that we can make Idaho the beacon on the hill. And that's why I'm doing all that I'm doing. And that's why I'm calling these people out for the liars that they are and the traitors that they are. Because that's the only way it's going to change, is if we speak truth to their power. So I think we have opportunities here. And I hope people see that we have this possibility that more than ever in our lifetimes, that Idaho is changing in a positive way. It's not the good old boys who are running the show anymore.
Thank you. I want to thank both of you for your incredible courage and heroism, number one. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And speaking of courage, we're being called to find our own level of courage. And on that point, I would like to tell people about a group called Braver Angels. I don't know if people have heard of it. Anybody heard of it? No. Braver Angels is a group that was founded with the purpose of helping people learn how to talk to one another across the divide of red and blue. And I've been a member for about less than a year, and I'm learning. And I thought I knew how to talk to people, and in many ways I did, but I'm learning to not be so afraid, and that's a huge deal for me. So if you are interested in learning more about Braver Angels, which gives you really sound ways to be in a conversation and begin to bridge the divide on a personal, individual level, just look up Braver Angels online. And I think it's .org, but I'm not positive. So just look up Braver Angels and you'll find it. Thank you.
I just want to make sure everybody could hear that. Can they hear that, Mike? Basically, what she's talking about is an organization called Braver Angels that teaches us how to speak with others across the divide. Braver Angels.
For everyone, the sound system here is a little broken, so it'll cut it.
And that's for the recording, right? This for the recording.
But he could turn around and speak
Yeah.
because you're not videoing him.
Yeah, true. You'll be able to hear me. You'll be able to hear me. Trust me. Okay, so we have some elected officials in this room, and the elected officials are elected by the people. There's some information that has went with the shenanigans on this bill to, quote, high-level meetings. High-level meetings that were not transparent with the people. Can you speak to who high-level meetings should be with in a republic?
If you can read the bottom of my tie, it says, "We the people." You are as high level in whatever chair you're sitting in as they are. We only have a government because of the consent of the governed. And they're supposed to represent you. So that's my response.
What David just asked about is something that was actually said yesterday to Misty Karlfeld, one of the executive directors of Health Freedom Idaho, by someone she'd considered a friend for a very long time, and that's Senator Dan Foreman. He was ignoring me and refusing my pleas, begging him for a minute or two just to explain to him what I thought was happening while he was conducting high-level meetings. Right before he told her to leave him alone, when she said, "Do you understand?" This should be so repugnant to anyone who represents the people, let alone someone who claims to be a liberty legislator. The betrayal that I have felt in the last 5 days because of these actions is something that's going to take me quite a while to come to terms with. Clearly, we should be judging people by their actions, not their words. And when they meet in secret, they are showing us who they are. We should believe them. And we should hold them accountable. And the only way we're going to do that is if you all engage. That means going and doing lid drops in people that we need to get rid of who are betraying the people. It means being willing to primary them. It means being willing to go out and walk and knock doors. That's what it means. It means actually engaging and helping to make sure that people know about the good candidates out there who really want to represent us.
Strong voice.
I don't know. Do I? Ryan, Leslie, Sarah, you guys are awesome. You get my blood boiling, the stab in my heart, the stomach, the tears. I feel it, and that's what gets us going. Why don't we have a DOGE Auditor General mechanism in Idaho? $22 billion came into this state for COVID. Nobody can explain it. Bedke turned his back on me when I said, what about an Auditor General? Not to brag or anything, my cousin was the Auditor General of that communist state down there. I came up here in 06, 07, and 04. It was cool to have exactly what we've got, to make a difference. And if I can't get my butt up, I'm kind of burned out with some of this stuff with these griftocrats, grifters, calling themselves Republicans. Convention of State passes out $53,000 across the board from out of state to 7 of the 8 of which voted for let's push the Convention of States. And you look on the list of who got money. I'm sick of it. So can we get a governor, and I know who would be a perfect lieutenant governor with you. He even looks a little like JD. If we can get a Doge something moving, it may take a people's movement to do something, but we got to have an Auditor General. For every dollar they saved in California, for every dollar they spent, they saved 6. Can we do that in Idaho too, sir?
When I spend money, my wife tells me, She's my auditor. Yeah. We absolutely should Doge Idaho. We should double, triple Doge Idaho. I mean, we need... What Idaho needs is DeSantis Doge plus. And I think that's really what we need to do. Look, it's not our legislators' money. It's ours. It's yours. And so if we're wasting it, I think, you get all the politics on TV and social media. Everybody's upset about Doge, this, that, and the other. I'm like, they're stealing from you. It's your money. You want it spent responsibly in a way that is going to positively impact and improve your society and where you live. So if you're paying taxes, they better darn well be going to something beneficial to the community, or let's not spend them. But yes, we need to Doge Idaho as well.
I have to say something to that too. Not to blow any holes in Doge, but what they've uncovered, they're focused on a sliver of the corruption at the federal level. And while we're all focused on that and celebrating that, what are they not attacking? What have they not dismantled? The biosecurity state, the surveillance state, the entire pandemic preparedness apparatus that they've installed in the last 25 years. None of it has been taken down. Those shiny little things that they're distracting us with, they're great, but they are not the whole answer. Yes, absolutely we need to root out corruption. We absolutely need a Doge here in Idaho. But we need to go much further, which is to dismantle the system that is enslaving us. And they're enslaving us by stealing our money. Some of the most abhorrent words to me in the English language are federal money or government money. It's not government. Like, this is insane when I hear people say that. I'm like, it's our money. And they go, yes, it's ours. But anyway, we really have to make sure we're not just paying attention to what's in the media, because they're not talking about the really big problems.
Okay, so voter ID and paper ballots would solve a lot of the problem. That's not what I wanted to ask you about.
Agree.
So I'm an international missionary. On March 4th of 2020, my wife and I and another couple from Twin Falls landed in Sao Paulo, Brazil. 2 weeks later, the world was shut down. And they had plenty of toilet paper in Brazil. But probably a month or so after we got back from Brazil, there was a couple that was a leader on the missions base that we were at that got vaccines. Within a week, both of them were dead. So my question is, when's Anthony Fauci, Pfizer, Moderna going to be held responsible for killing my friends? And why are they still giving people this vaccine?
Where to even start on that? Takes a long time to right a ship that is going so clearly in the wrong direction. I'm encouraged by some of the things that Secretary Kennedy is doing. Yesterday was a pretty big day. They're dismantling a lot. Fauci's wife was transferred, basically not fired, but demoted yesterday, which is a firing. In the ultimate irony, she was a bioethics expert. It's true. Clearly, those shots need to be withdrawn, and in any fair and decent society, they would be. However, I will say this. I'm a homeopath. I raised my son completely without drugs. But you know what? I stand for people's right to use drugs if they choose. They just need to have proper informed consent. It's not up to me to decide how someone else lives their life. It's not okay, however, for the pharmaceutical industry to bear zero liability for their products which is the case with the COVID shots and all vaccines. So because of the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act and the Countermeasures Injury Compensation Program. So in my view, the way that you resolve the situation is twofold. You you remove the liability shield in those two legislative acts, the Countermeasures Program and the Childhood Vaccine Injury Program. Restore liability because you know what? If they're liable, they're not going to produce such crap. That's the truth. And if you actually had good people at FDA rather than a completely captured agency, then you wouldn't have such a problem either. Right now, as it stands, nearly $3 billion of pharma money goes directly to the drug approvers at FDA to fast track their products, and it accounts for 65% of the drug approver salaries. This has to be stopped. I wrote actually a 12-action plan that was posted on, it's posted on my Substack, and it's policy imperatives for the new administration. And I think if we were to undo a bunch of those things, it would change things dramatically. The Prescription Drug User Fee Act needs to go away, which fast tracks. The Bayh-Dole Act, which allows federal employees to retain the patent rights, that needs to go away. So many other things. I would call on, I'm going to put someone in a little bit of on the hot seat. I would call on the attorneys general in the states. They are empowered to hold Anthony Fauci culpable in their states. So call the attorney general and ask him to do something because it's not going to happen at the federal level. And I agree with you, they should be held accountable, but it's not going to happen from the feds.
Sorry. Thank you, Leslie and Dr. Cole, for coming today and presenting. And would you like to speak to education? Education in terms of knowing how to fuel ourselves, how to move our bodies in nutrition and fitness, essentially, and how that helps improve the mind, mentally, emotionally, maybe not so spiritually, but mentally, emotionally. And having sources to go to learn about eating and moving and whatnot. And would you like to help me plug brokenscience.org to learn about what science is not, and how to approach living life in that way. So thank you.
Great question, and thank you for bringing this up. And this is so important. This goes back to that personal responsibility. We as a nation are not healthy. We know it. And, we do have the Make America Healthy Again movement. Fantastic. But the movement isn't going to change your health. You're going to change your health. The best doctor you'll ever meet is in this room right now. I know you've heard me say this before. It's not me, it's you. Look in the mirror. You are your own best doctor. There is a plethora of information. What diet do I live? Whole foods, organic, non-processed. Going to Leslie's point, liability shields, these big, not only big pharma companies, but the big ag companies are trying to get liability protection for the poisons they're spraying on the foods, the glyphosates, which is not an herbicide. Anybody that thinks glyphosate's an herbicide, you're wrong. Look at the patent in 2010. It is an antibiotic. It is messing up the microbiome of America. That's why we need to get rid of it. They're giving you an antibiotic without informed consent in your foods. Move your body. Sunshine, 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 sunshine. Get outside. Not just vitamin D, but near infrared light. There's so many sources out there, so I'm not going to plug any one over the other. But again, it goes back down to that individual personal responsibility level. A lot of us have a couple of years of undoing to do. 16 years ago, I did a big lifestyle change personally. This is me, 46 pounds lighter. I had dad bod before dad bod was cool. But there are a lot of things you can do. And yes, movement and exercise not only is good for your physical health, it's good for your mental health as well as spiritual health. Absolutely.
Looks like we have two more questions here.
Last week we sat here in this same room and we listened to Theo Wold. And you're absolutely right. We've got to primary the gentleman that is in that governor's seat right now. In order to do that, there's some things we need. One of them is to focus on one of the issues that he has most let us down, and that is medical freedom. So we need someone in that role to primary him who has firsthand knowledge of that. In order to primary him out, we need somebody who's got a network in this state that already has credibility, who has that sense of liberty, who has that background. In order to primary him out, we need the one man that Theo Wold talked about last week. And I'm sorry, Dr. Cole, but that man's you.
I'm humbled and thank you. And stay tuned.
I'd be the first to sign up. I don't know how many years I have left, but I'll help. I'm not sure what kind of a Dr. Fauci was, but I recall something called the Hippocratic Oath, not the Hypocrite Oath. And I don't think he understands the difference. And also, I feel for you and your friend. I've got a friend that went blind from the vaccine. Somebody like his friend that died probably from the vaccine. In the business I worked in, they called it a therapeutic misadventure. I worked with the other kind of pathologist that you're not. You know, that third one.
America needs healing. There are so many people that were harmed, and my heart breaks for all of them. And I continue to do research in these areas. But this goes to a greater point. One death is a tragedy, a million is a statistic. That's what Stalin said. We need to change that mindset, that there are people around us that are permanently injured and hurt from efforts of the government. And one more legislative thing that needs to happen that I would add to Leslie's fantastic list is we need to get rid of the PrEP Act. It's unconstitutional. People are harmed. People are hurting. We have some new leadership. I know Dr. Bhattacharya. I know Bobby Kennedy. I know some of the people. Look, Leslie nailed it. We're trying to turn a battleship on a dime. That is an entrenched swamp with a lot of bureau rats. And we need to get rid of the bureau rats. And that's taking time. But there are a lot of people that will be helped when people care to do so. And there are many of us that have been trying and will continue to try to do so. So thank you for that point.
I just want to say, there's someone else in the room, Doug Cameron. Many of you guys have probably heard of him. He was coerced into taking the COVID shot by his employer. That's something that he absolutely did not want, and he's paralyzed and sitting in a wheelchair at the back of the room. He's paralyzed from the diaphragm down, almost died. He has been a family friend. He was a dear friend of my father's. And I've told him repeatedly, this act, the Idaho Medical Freedom Act, is for him. It's for him and every other Idahoan and hopefully every other American ultimately that was robbed of the right to make their own choices. And I know Ryan is not, saying anything definitively right now, but I do know that he would stand for all of our rights, that he would do the right thing, and I will be right by his side.
Two more quick questions, if that's okay.
Thank you both for all of your hard work and effort. I guess my question might be twofold. I know when a certain injection came out and a certain infection was in the population, there was a lot of fear directed to those who would not do certain things. A massage therapist had agreed to see me, but then when she found, basically members of her quarantine pod said that I would be too risky because I would not be wearing a mask during the thing. So she canceled my appointment. And anyway, there's been a lot of other incidents like that. But there's also a flip side. I mean, how many of us now, quite frankly, I was relieved when I saw a physical therapist who both of us knew that our status in regards to a certain injection. So I have had, I've read on social media that small businesses are worried that they might not be able to maybe make some of the choices that they would like to make for themselves. And so I guess my question is, how do we address the fear? Because I am fully in support of Leslie's beautiful bill and in support of medical freedom. But there's a lot of fear out there. And also, we would like to know, there's been questions about blood transfusions and, we'd like to know people's status when we're getting treatments like physical therapy. So how do we deal with our individual medical autonomy and also the fear and the concerns of those on the other side? So I'm not sure if this is a good question or not, but.
Thank you, Regan. That's a great question. And her question is basically, we saw so much fear over the last couple of years. Fear is easily defined. Fear, F-E-A-R, false expectations accepted as real. And the way you overcome fear is through actual communication and dialogue and not censorship. Look, I could be hit crossing the street. I could have a lawnmower accident on my farm tomorrow. I'm not going to live my life in fear because life is here to be lived. But I think part of overcoming fear is communicating and being good citizens. And, yes, there's that other side that lives in fear. Why do they still live in fear? Because they were gaslit, because the media was telling them one narrative. If all you hear constantly is one narrative over and over and over and over and over, it probably isn't true. We have state-run propaganda in America. Look what USAID was doing. So part of overcoming fear is conversation, education, dialogue, and receiving. If you're afraid of something, confronting the fear is important as well. And, we also need not discriminate. You were discriminated against because you had, and this is why Leslie has ACT, and this ACT for the people of Idaho is so important, is they can't make that medical decision for you. You get to make your own medical decision. So fear is a problem in society. That's how big entities control people, is through fear. We need to value liberty, freedom, conversation, and dialogue over that fear.
And it goes both ways, right? So there's the person who's still wearing a mask because they're so afraid. That's really sad. But there's a lot of us who are afraid of being shed on. And shed on. We've already been on. No, but seriously, when I was working on Wall Street, I lived in London, and it was during 9/11. And I remember that within 3 or 4 days of that horrific incident, you remember what they did? They showed the planes flying into the buildings over and over and over and over again. Why? Because they are installing a trauma pattern in the psyche of the public. They want you to be afraid, so it's easy for them to make you afraid again in the next time, the next instance. But what happened was, within 3 days after 9/11, 70% of my office was sick. Did they catch something? September, early September. They just caught a bug. Everybody got sick. No, it's because when we're afraid, when we actually go into that place, it actually releases cortisol into our systems, which suppresses our immune system, and then ultimately we get sick. That's what happens. So do your best to not go into that place of fear, because it goes both ways. And just trust, take care of yourself, do all you can to keep yourself healthy and well, and stay out of fear as much as possible. That's how we solve this. And those people who still want a mask, I hate to say this, but maybe they'll come around and maybe they won't. They're not the ones to focus your energy and effort on. It's those who we know have a possibility of actually coming over and understanding what's at stake here for our future.
I just want to say thank you to Capital Clarity for the opportunity, and thank you to Leslie for her great bill, and thank you to the amazing legislators who have done the right thing and helped push this forward. And let's just hope the governor does the right thing, and if not, let's see a new governor.
Okay, thank you for coming. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Dr. Cole. Yeah, you better grab them quick. Representative Wisniewski wants a picture of you. Did that go okay for you? Everything go good? Oh, good. Good, good. Yeah. Sorry, excuse me. Thank you. Yeah. Everyone, we do have to be out of this room in 10 minutes, so if you could take conversations out to the hallway, it would be very appreciated. Thank you.
Fine.
Should have said that in the beginning. Yeah, they're going to close us up on it. Hey. Yes.
What specific words should I put there to be most effective?
Are you talking about on holding Fauci accountable? That would be a great question for Leslie, probably. I mean, I would just maybe say in there, you know, we know that this will only happen at the state level. It's not going to happen at the federal level. And for crimes that he committed in Idaho, we would like him held accountable.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
That's short and sweet.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Hi. You're welcome. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you. Yeah.
I'll give them one.
Is there any you could move their conversations to the hallway? We would appreciate it. The room is going to be lost.
It's okay. No. You know what? Go in here. I'm just throwing everything in here. I'm just throwing everything in here. If you want to throw it in there, I'm going back to the office. So. You sure? I don't care.